Okay. I am running a few minutes behind today, as we can see. Okay, had to make sure that was the lid I wanted. I wasn't sure at first. Okay. So we'll be using those in a little bit. Alrighty. Almost got myself together here. So how is everybody today? It is Tuesday. No, it's not. It is Monday. My bad. It is very much Monday. And it is an art day. Sorry, I just have to make a slight adjustment to the camera, and I forgot to grab one sheet of paint. Dang it. And of course, it's in the container that's at the bottom. Okay. Okay. So I am running a little bit behind, and I do apologize for that. It was a slow morning, and then I had to try to find the original reference image for this, and I can't, so it's somewhere in my possession, I just can't find it. Of course. That doesn't really help us right now, so we're going to use the image of the finished piece I did. So, this might look slightly familiar. I did paint this piece before. This piece, some of you may remember, went up on the YouTube channel while we were away, back in... Oh, you don't want to stretch. While we were away back in, September and October. And I had painted that one in oil on a, like a little 4-inch wooden, like wood slice that I turn into magnets. And we kind of tried to do it in like the Bob Rossi style. Tried to. But, I wasn't sure what I wanted to paint today. I was like, you know what? I want to try painting a couple of the ones that I did in oil before. Excuse me, in acrylics. Just to see how it comes out any differently. You know, just for shees and giggles. Why not? You know what? I might also do it in gouache later down the road. Just to get a feel for, you know, differences. I still have a couple of gouache pieces that I've done when we were doing the Bob Ross stuff, which I really do need to get back into, by the way. I do want to revisit that. I'm not sure if I like this piece. It's sticky. I might need a different bit here. We'll see. I'm not sold on that. Alright, so we've got a... Uh-oh. Oh no.
What?
Where did it go?
What'd you do?
Oh, jeez, there it is. Never mind. Fun fact, kneaded erasers are the same color as my microphone base. And when I accidentally dropped one of the erasers, it hit the kneaded eraser and it bounced up to the little U-shaped thing that holds my microphone, and I lost sight of it. So, that happened. Alright. Do they make small T-squares?
Somewhere you can get one.
Because this big-ass thing, I like having my T-square. The only way I can really have any hope of getting a straight line. It's just, it's big. it's long, like it's awkward, and I was really hoping for a smaller one. Alright, let me pull up my reference image. Okay, so mine is kind of on a circle, so I kind of have to make a count for that. I wish I could have found the original, but alas, I could not. So how much water do we have here? Kind of feel like we don't have a huge amount of water. We have some water. Okay, so I thought I just adjusted that camera. I didn't adjust it enough. So maybe that's our water. I don't know if I still need the T-square. It's the base of our water. So we've got a shoreline. In here. These are just like rough approximations. I am probably going to drift from these lines. Just so you all are aware. Alright, and then I have a slightly we've got some lighter shoreline, some land here. Kind of pushed back into here. I don't know if I'll be able to come out with the same sort of look. And that's okay. Alright, so we've got some like tree lines that I'm gonna kind of take up like this way. I always feel weird with the sides because like I don't know if I should just like cut the painting off at the edge or if I should wrap it around. Now granted this one isn't as deep. Isn't as high. Like the stretcher bars are not as chunky as some of the ones are that I have. But like I always get like, do I wrap it around? Do I just paint it a solid color and call it a day and assume somebody's going to put it in a frame? Like, I don't know. I almost feel like I should wrap it around to some degree, just in case people don't frame it. Like, a lot of the stuff that I've kept that I've painted isn't framed because A, frames are expensive sometimes, and B, I never really know how to frame it, and I don't have the money to get it custom framed. So it just kind of becomes its thing. All right. So now in the reference image, we've got this big ass mountain back here. And he kind of Actually, I'm thinking I might need to adjust that just a little. That's what I'm thinking. And yeah, I did go a little heavy on the pencil, but that's also so you all, partially so you guys can see, and partially so I can see you once I get done doing the bit of the underpainting here. Alright, so I might have to adjust my mountain here a little bit. So this guy kind of comes up here. That might be a little tall. We need a little bit of room here. Now, I could have pre-sketched this, but I would have had to have done it last night. And I just didn't. Like, it doesn't have to be fully exact here to our reference. We can give it our own little adjustments here to what's going to work out better for us. You know what? I think I'm going to take you up a little bit higher here. I think that's what I want. You gonna kind of do that. So this guy kind of comes down. That's something like that. Of course, now I'm not sure which line I wanted to keep, so let me. It's a little steep now, so okay, that feels a little better. Don't worry, all of our erasing marks won't matter in the end. So we've kind of got, you guys can barely see that. So then maybe to there. Okay, and then kind of like there-ish. It's kind of, yeah, well, yeah, that's not so bad. Okay. Now, my canoe, it needs to be a little bit rounded, but not too rounded. Kind of like a spaceshipy half circle. So figure out where we kind of want it sitting. Now these I'm never really good at. Let's see. Like, it doesn't really need to be like completely accurate here. All right. So I'm just gonna kind of bring this up and around. Oh, okay, yeah, that kind of is a little bit further out on this side. That's all right. It's okay. We'll figure it out. So we need a top piece there. And so maybe about here. We're gonna take that like straight across. And I'm going to pull that out. And then okay. So I've got this piece in here. Okay. And then okay, so I'm gonna kind of stick with my outer line here. Now I didn't sketch anything on that oil painting ahead of time, so that was all of my nervousness trying to do things. Actually, almost. Like, I almost want to bring another ring. I think this will make this a bit easier for me. Oh, hold on one second. Alright, sorry about that. Like I said, phone's always ringing. Alright, so that's not too bad. We kind of have our key players here. Alright, so these guys can all go back in my eraser bag. Oh, now them back there. Alright, so we're gonna get some water here. In our little paint cup. Alright, and I'm gonna do our base color. So I'm using this spice red. Just to get a little bit of color down so we're not just dealing with the solid white of our canvas. But I don't want it like thick on there. I want it transparent. So now this is an 8x10 canvas that we are working with today. I could use one of my smaller ones, but I've got a few of these. And I wanted to work through these guys. Just trying to make sure that we've got enough of this mixed together. So I'm not sure I do. And like I said, I want it to be transparent. Okay. That still doesn't quite look like enough water. Ah, that's probably too much. Oh, don't flip that. We don't want to make a mess. Okay. I'm gonna start with these sides here. So, yeah, I made too much. It's either feast or famine here. I either don't have enough, or I mix way too much. Alright, so one of the good things about this being so watery is that A, it's transparent, so that we can see our sketch. And B, this process shouldn't take too long to dry. I can turn the fan on if I need to. I don't feel like dragging the heat gun out right now. Like, I don't think I really need the heat gun. Although I do find it interesting that this is beating up. Maybe I did add too much water. Ah, you live and learn. Okay, now I'm gonna work on getting the top covered here. Now I'm not gonna stress this too much if it's not completely even. We are covering this. I mean, I don't want it to be too terribly uneven, but this doesn't have to be its own masterpiece. Oh, I have to sneeze. And it's just sitting there, which is maddening. Absolutely maddening. So everybody's having a good day. Better than me, I hope, because I was trying to skip a Monday altogether. I was saying it was Tuesday when we were first getting started. Yeah, I mixed way too much. Way too much. That's alright. I'm gonna have to get a paper towel to clean up all my splotches here all over the desk. Or sprinkles. So while I'm waiting on that, I might pop the fan on just to speed this along. I also had to pick out the colors I was going to use for this. That was actually a bit of a challenge. And not because I didn't necessarily have the right colors. I was just trying to figure out what would be easier to work with here. Just we're just making a mess everywhere. I think I am going to soak up some of this extra paint that we didn't end up using, just so I don't tip it everywhere. Sorry, my husband always looks at me funny when I smell my canvases when I open them, but there's something about a freshly opened canvas. When you peel that plastic off, it just smells so good. It's really like the wood of the stretcher bars. I mean, let's not pretend, but it is fabulous. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll rinse our brush. And tell you what, we'll get a fresh paper towel. Let me get these paint speckles off of my arm. Okay, I'm gonna mute the mic real quick and turn the fan on so this can start to dry a little bit faster. Okay, it's mostly dry. It added its own little glitter in the shape of the fur that goes flying through this house. But, you know, that is what it is. I'm trying to find the sky color I picked out. Here you are. So it's a bit of a like gray, cloudy day. I have to get this color good and mixed here. It is currently upside down because the bottom wasn't quite dry yet, and I've still got a shiny spot over there. It's getting there. So I'm just using acrylic craft paint, to be perfectly honest. It fits my budget better, and you can still paint stuff with it. It doesn't have to be the high-end expensive paint. Now, the higher end paints in like the tubes of artist paint, you might have a little bit of an easier time with. Some of those might be a little bit more opaque, but we've still done some decent things with these, and you can do decent things with these. All right, let's get this open. I haven't used this color yet. And we'll get this. What is this? This is Colonial Blue, Deco Art Americana is the brand that I have been using lately. Now it says Colonial Blue, but it's kind of gray. So I need some more water here because we dumped out the last bit. Get some fresh water here. Alright, who do we want to paint our sky? I don't know who I want to paint our sky. Let me grab my other container here. How about you? What the hell? Did I just drop something? It felt like something hit the floor. But there's nothing there. What the heck? What was that? That was bizarre. We didn't have anything being delivered, right?
I'm supposed to get a couple of those metal cones, like the one that got dropped. Maybe that got dropped off.
Go check out front, because it felt like something hit the ground by my foot. But I'm not seeing anything in here. And that was very strange. Like, very strange. Alright. Okay. So, I'm gonna set this sideways, just while we get started here.
Nope, nothing.
That was bizarre. And there were no cats out there?
Nope.
What the heck? Like, it felt like something thumped and sounded like a metal thump. That was very strange. So I almost used this color as the base of our mountain here. But then I was like, well, it has a bit of a blue to it. So I think that I would rather put it in the sky here. Now this might take 2 coats, to where I'm happy with it, or you can leave it as one coat and have the like sienna type color shining through the thinner spots. That's up to you. I just kind of like to have some kind of color down so that if I do have a thin spot, it's not like the bright white of the canvas staring at me. Okay. So this paint actually does have a bit better coverage than the other paint that we had been using. So I am happy about that. I've still had to do a couple of coats on some of the colors. And like if it's a super transparent color, that's needed like maybe 3 coats, but that's understandable. But there were times with that other paint where I was like up to like 6 layers of it. Not sponsored in any way. This is just the brand of paint I've decided to go with this time to see how I was liking it. I almost went with folk art, but that would have been a little bit tighter on my tiny budget. It's a little bit more than this stuff, like not tremendously more, and I probably could have pulled it off, but I would have had to get colors of paint in smaller increments. With this one, I was able to get a few more colors at one time. I did have to pick up on purpose another bottle of our dark chocolate because that's the color that we use on our magnet backs and frames, because that bottle felt like maybe it was at least a third, if not halfway gone, and I was like, oh, we're blowing through this color. I was like, so let me purposely grab another one of those. I am terribly, terribly, terribly excited for the Planet Zoo pack coming out tomorrow. Guys, there's a new flamingo. That is exciting. I'm glad we're getting a second species of that. Because not all of them are the same size, not all of them are the same color. So I am very excited. And I saw somebody previewing the pack, so they must have got it ahead of time to do a PR video for it on YouTube. It looks so good. And there's a new picnic bench that I really like. The park benches are kind of skinny, like they're not super deep, but they're all right. Guess if you have a tight walkway, those would not be a bad idea. All right. So it does have a bit of that like gray blue feel going on here. And you can see as it's drying, it is getting a little bit darker. This is just the straight color. I didn't mix anything yet. Might have to add a little touch up in there. We'll see as it dries where I might need to come in. Just give another little swipe here and there. Like, I don't necessarily think I'm gonna have to do the whole thing. We'll see. But I don't think I will. I mean, so far we seem to be drying pretty good. I don't know why, but this light feels extra bright today in my face. Okay. Actually, that's pretty good in that coverage so far. We'll give it a minute to dry and see how it goes. I think this was supposed to be a watercolor brush, but I ended up using it for acrylics. Oh well. It's an acrylic brush now. Alright. Now, I do have some swirly, cloudy guys in here. I didn't pull out the colors for that though, because of course I didn't. So I've got my white pulled out. While that is drying, I see if I can find it. Yeah, it's a little brown. We'll take that one. Okay. Now, I have... You might work here today. So, sometimes, if you're having trouble finding brushes that aren't sheddy, unpopular opinion, you can grab makeup brushes, especially if you're having a hard time finding the right kind of brush. All right. This is an eye smudge brush, apparently. From Studio Selection. It's stiff and springy. We'll see how it does. We're still a little wet up there, so I don't want to dive in with that. I have a couple makeup brushes, actually. I've got this that's a makeup brush. Sometimes I use this for putting sealer on when it's a brush on one. Sometimes. And I've got a couple others. I'm not seeing them though, so I don't know if I'm just not seeing them. Got quite a few brushes in here. They might be in my other brush bin though. These aren't all of our brushes. No, they're in my other... Oh no, that's one of them. The rest... Oh! Stop it. Breaking my glasses. Okay, let me grab my other brush bin here. Where is the brush bin? There. No. I did not say that you could dump everything everywhere. That's not allowed. So yeah, like if you need like a really good mop brush. I don't have a whole lot of them, but I do have a few. They're especially good if your budget is super tight. Like, I don't have a whole bunch of them, but I've got a couple. I feel like I have one more. I thought I had one more. I thought it had a black handle. Because I used it for something specifically. Interesting. Either I'm just not seeing it. Oh, there it is. Little guy. It's a little guy. Oh, that knee. Damn it. Oh. Yeah. I slammed my bad knee. So I mean, you can get some lovely shaped brushes here. I like this one for clouds a lot. I'm gonna see how this one does, but I might need the softer one. This one's really soft. So I mean, you can get some different stiffnesses on these guys too. So I think we're gonna try these three for right now. These ones are good to cover big areas. or, you know, maybe some tree shapes. I would play around with them. Hello, Ari. Welcome in. I'm gonna throw those other ones back in my box. Hang on, let me make sure I didn't. Ah, no!
Did you damage it?
I did!
Damn it, woman, you just healed that.
I know, apparently I didn't heal it good enough. Because it reskinned half of it when I hit the edge of my desk.
Christ, honey!
It's not like I did it on purpose.
Are you openly bleeding?
Yes!
Okay. Alright. Well, come on over here, let's have a look.
Alright, give me 1 second, you guys. I gotta fix this. Okay, so some backstory about what just happened. About 2.5 weeks ago, maybe 3 weeks now, we had taken the dogs to the one park, and I was distracted by a loose dog trying to see where it went, and my foot hit the edge of the walkway, and it was dirt on one side, walkway on the other, and I did not realize that they were not even. So foot hit the edge and rolled. My ankle rolled, and it rolled enough where it threw me off balance, and I fell. And all 198 pounds of myself came down on my one knee, and I skinned it real bad. Like, it was stinging for like 2 weeks straight. The scab just lifted off like 2 days ago. Not 2 days ago, well, maybe 2 to 3 days ago. And I was like, oh good, we're getting better, we're improving. I can kind of kneel on that knee again. Because while the scab was on there, I couldn't. It was just like tingly and stung so bad. And when I was scooting my chair back under my desk, my knee slammed into the leg of my desk and partially reskinned the section that had regrown. Yay! But it doesn't look like we need to do anything too much with it right now. Expert comedian, you're not funny. You're not. You know what's funny? I'm gonna report you, though. I think that's funny. A link to stream Goodbye, cheap. The viewers from. I'm not buying viewers, so get the F out with that nonsense. There's no point in buying viewers. There's no point. Because when the money runs out to buy the viewers, then the viewers go away. And you're right back where you started. In my personal opinion. Yeah, it's like, why would I want to do that? That's silly. Like, no, that's okay. That's okay. Yeah, I know some people do it, and I don't understand why. Why are you going to bother? I mean, you're wasting your own money. But I guess if they want to waste their own money. And I mean, some people might get a little bit more exposure that way to more viewers. But eventually, you stop paying for those viewers, the fake ones, and where does that leave you? Like the other viewers will slowly trickle away. Like there's just no point. But we're not going to waste our money here. It's against terms of service too to be doing that nonsense. And we're just not. We're not gonna. I wonder how many reports it takes to get those accounts actually banned. Because that didn't pop up in the chat for everybody. It only popped up for me and the mods. And it said likely ban evader. Well, if you think they're a likely ban evader at this point, why didn't you take a more severe action than just restricting their messages? Yeah, I know, but at what point are you expending more than you're bringing in? Like, I'm a small streamer. I know I'm a small streamer. Some stuff does better here, some stuff does better on YouTube. It's just kind of like all in the algorithm because I also have the YouTube channel. I've had the YouTube channel. Oh God, I think something popped up that said the YouTube channel was 16 years old. 2 to 3 reports, it gets flagged, Twitch smacks down. 1 to 3 more pop up. Yeah, it's because most of these accounts that are doing this were made within the last week. Most of them. Most of them. Now, I haven't gone live on YouTube. I mostly go live here and I use the YouTube channel to archive. I've put some stuff up on the YouTube channel that I haven't streamed. So I've got some art, speed paints over there. I've got some gameplay for Bear and Breakfast that we did not stream. So I've got a few things over there that didn't get streamed. But I haven't live streamed on YouTube yet. I just wasn't sure if I should bother since I'm monetized here and not monetized there. I don't have the followers or the watch hours over there to get monetized, and that channel's 16 years old. My highest rated my highest rated video, one of the first videos I ever put up, was from back when I was playing WoW. And when machinimas were all the rage. And I did make one with the help of the husband. I made most of it. He helped me with some of the special effects. But because of the song it has in the background, I could never even attempt to monetize it anyway. Because the song isn't royalty free. Probably never will be. But that is where most of my views on that channel came from. It's still getting views today. Not as much as when I first posted it, obviously, but it's still getting quite a number of views on a daily basis. But of course, like in the credits and all, I'd put my character name at the time, or one of them, and everything, so I don't know if people believe that I actually made it, but I did. With the help of Model Viewer and some other remote camera tricks and stuff that we did, and screenshots in the wee hours when a lot of players wouldn't be in the way, and tried to find some obscure locations that weren't super busy on pretty quiet servers. But I think that's had almost, and I know it's not very many views for some people. It's a lot of views for me. I think lifetime it's up to 169,000 the last time I checked, which is a lot for me. So I know that's not a lot for some people, and a lot of people would scoff at that, but compared to my other stuff. So I'm just kind of putting in the dark base of my clouds using this softer makeup brush just to kind of get some fluffy circly bits in here. So like I said earlier, the one in the corner is the screenshot of the finished oil one, the oil version of this that I did. I think I actually painted that. Oh gosh, I think I actually painted that like back in August or July, somewhere around in there. I don't think it went up on the channel till the end of September, beginning of October, somewhere in there. Alright, so let me get my edge over here. Now, I will say these ones do hold onto their paint, so if you attempt to do the makeup brushes, just be aware of that. They are a little bit to clean. Not impossible to clean, but you will have to rinse them really good. And they do take a minute to dry. So if you want to reuse that immediately, well, that's not too bad. One of the ones I have takes forever. I think it might be one of the bigger ones. It's still a little damp. But it's not shedding or anything, so that is a plus. Alright, get a little bit more water. Okay, so I've got a larger cup off to the side that I am dumping my dirty water in. My poor mug, it broke, so we glued it back together and we use it for paint water now. Okay, so that was, what was that? That was the slate gray. Alright, so we're gonna grab Gray Sky. I'm gonna put a little bit of that out. Do I want this guy? Let me see. This guy's a little bit stiffer than the other one. Alright, this one doesn't say what type of brush it was. This one says it's a blending eyeshadow brush. I am tapping off a lot of the extra paint. That's It's very bright. It's very bright. So I've got the scrubby one. I'm gonna grab some of that darker. Actually, give me some of that darker and give me some of this lighter. I'm gonna mix these two. I might have to, like, that was really bright. That was quite a bit brighter than I wanted it to be. Like, shockingly brighter. Now this is the little scrubby guy, right? So I'm just trying to come in and get this done. So how are you today, Ari? Didn't really get the chance to ask because I had slammed my knee into the desk there. Right as you kind of came in. Alright, I'm gonna rinse this other one. Although you might not still be here, and that's fine if you're not. Right, I need a little bit of white. Some people just put me on as background sound, and that's fine too. Alright, so I'm gonna grab just a little bit of white here. And I'm gonna come back in with that scrubby one. And just try to work that in while this is still a little wet. Right, so I'm just gonna grab some more of that lighter, like the combo of the lighter gray and the darker gray mixed together, because that was really bright there. Just kind of throwing it all in there together. This is a eye smudge brush, makeup brush that I am currently using. I've not used this brush before. I had picked him up and then just never really got around to using him. So you're working, it's Monday, been working all morning, now just getting caught up with stuff from over the weekend, stream as well, co-working, Pomodoro stream, not really stream, but more of a keep me focused tech manager. Okay, I gotcha. Alrighty. I gotcha. Yeah, I use, right now the schedule is we stream Sunday through Wednesday at the moment. And then I use the other days to attempt to get some personal projects done that I am currently working on. I have a large 36 by 48 canvas that I'm currently putting together. I'm doing some tissue paper art on it. We've done a little bit of that on the channel. Not a whole lot, but we've done a little bit of tissue paper art. I was thinking about streaming it, but it's very large, and the camera I would need to use isn't my better camera, because the better camera is working where it's located, and I don't want to move it. I dare not touch it. Dare not touch it. So I've been you have zero and you mean zero artistic ability. Stick figures are about as good as you can publish. Hey, stick figures can be their own art form. And people don't believe me when I say that, but there's people that make comics with just stick figures that do fairly well. Stick figures can be their own thing. That can be your thing. Like, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm terrible at people. Like, absolutely terrible. I can't do people. There's a reason why we do what we do. But the couple times I have tried, just no. It it's okay. There's other people out there that are better at doing people than me, and I will let them have at it. But we stick with hanging out with Bob Ross for now, trying to learn some things from Bob and his fellow teachers. But right now is my personal side project. You okay? I wasn't sure if you're trying to get my attention or not. My side project. Let me see if I can bring it up here. I think this is the most recent one. Where is it? What? Why isn't it? Oh, because it's underneath of it. That would be why. So this is my most recent side project. That is tissue paper. I am trying to record it. I don't know how the recordings are coming out yet. I will figure that out when I go to edit it. But so that was a 36 by 48 canvas. It's like from the floor up to my chest. It is a big boy. So I did an underpainting just so I kind of had a vague color key worked out for where I wanted colors to go. And I cut a bunch of tiny little squares of tissue paper and then rolled them into little tiny paper tubes, essentially. and then glued them into place in the colors where they needed to be. I think I'm maybe, I don't know. The husband thinks I'm maybe 2/3. I think I'm maybe a third to a halfway done it. Um, I'm working on the water section right now. And then I have to do the flamingos, and then there's a beach I still have to do. And then I need to do palm trees. That's what those gray things are off to the sides on the very edges of the painting. Those are palm tree trunks. I still have to put those in, and then the palm fronds are going to sit on top of the sky. So that's why I don't have those like necessarily painted into place. But that is what I am working on right now on my non-streaming days. I just need to get a look at this guy for where we're at. I usually struggle with clouds a bit here. I like start to try to trust the process, and then I get like, oh, it's not coming out right, and then I kind of give up halfway through and try to do something else. And I just really need to kind of just see it through. It's one of the hardest things for me is just trying to get the cloud colors kind of balanced in there, right? And I don't think it's coming out too bad. This paint does dry very quickly. Oh, I've got so much paint loaded into this brush. Oh my. This one's gonna take a little bit of scrubbing, I think, to get it all out. But, yeah, I can't wait to see how that tissue paper project works out in the end. I have a whole box of tissue paper under my desk, like bags and bags of tissue paper. Like, our one friend didn't quite understand what I meant, so I had to show him the little tiny itty bitty squares. I could have made them a little bit bigger, but they are the shape that they are. And then he's like, oh, I'm like, yeah. He's like, oh my. I'm like, yeah. I've been working on it since July. It took me 2 weeks just to cut all of the tissue paper before I could even really get started. And then I did the underpainting, and now when I redid the part of the underpainting on the water, I color matched it to the tissue paper a little too well. So it's hard to see where I've added the tissue paper at the moment. It'll become a little bit more apparent once once I get closer down to the flamingos. So I don't know if we're gonna finish this today. We probably will get close, but I don't know if we'll completely finish it. It kind of depends on how fussy I decide to get. I did pull out some extra sticks that we were using for the magnet project to use as my paint scrapers if we get that far. We should at least get to the mountains today. Because, I mean, yeah, it's only 12:30. Alright, so let me grab some more of this mid-color. Kind of work that in. So, the white brush, the white with the pink on the tip, that one's a lot softer. So that might have been a little more swirly if I had used that one again. But I'm not exactly hating this brush. This brush is kind of doing okay. Now I am trying to carry this over to the edges a little bit. Because, you know, I never know if somebody's actually going to frame these things or not. And I still haven't decided if I'm going to reopen the eBay shop or keep forgetting to turn those notifications to mute on that Kindle, or if I'm just gonna give these away at the farmer's market. Because last year we did a giveaway at one of the farmer's markets in the summer. Because you don't have to pay a fee at our local farmer's market. But they do have you like fill out a paper so they know who showed up and stuff. And we didn't charge for anything. We did a free art giveaway. But I did have a tip jar out for anyone that essentially, like, you don't have to pay anything, but if you want to do a tip, that's cool. You know, just to help pay for art supplies to replenish the stuff that I've used. And I didn't have a whole lot. And I got rid of most of it. A lot of people took it, but it was kind of fun to see kids so excited to see stuff that was free. Because there's a lot of poor families in our area that are struggling. I mean, we're only just barely above the struggle line ourselves, but you know, it's like it was kind of fun seeing them excited about, "Oh, this is free. Can I take this? Can I take one for my friend?" And I'm like, "Yeah, okay. That's fine." I just didn't want one person to take the entire table, you know. So I kind of tried to like limit it to 3 per person. But we got new homes for a lot of our needle felted stuff, and then some people were looking at the ones that like didn't have hangers on them. They're like, "Oh, you know, you could try to put some magnets on it." And then I was like, you know what? We could try to do that. So, over the winter here, I picked up these wooden 3-inch by 3-inch squares and some tiny, tiny magnets, and did some needle felted magnets again, following our friend Bob, and we've done 7, so no, 8, 8. Maybe we did do 8. Maybe this will be the 9th one that we're starting tomorrow. I have to check my notes. You know what? I think we did complete 8 because I've got an even set on the fridge. I don't have any spaces missing. So, um, I'm interested to see how those do. And if anybody takes any of those home. Now, we have a lot of what they call antique stores in our area. A lot of them are just like indoor flea markets, essentially, where not everything is antique in there. Um, and it seems very hard to get an open booth in there because it seems very rare. But the one place does tend to have some open space every now and again, but it's in bad spots. Um, like the one, like they've got these aisles like so tight crammed into each other. And then there's like a back aisle that runs across the back of the store, and there's like wall space on the side that you can see when you look down the aisle, and then the wall space that was free was facing the long aisle, but you couldn't see it from the side aisles. So, like, you wouldn't know it was there unless you actually walked down there. And I was tempted to try it, but at the same time, I was like, the location's not great. It was like $20, and I didn't have a local business license, and I wasn't sure if I was gonna need one to set stuff up in there because I've not known anybody that has done it, and like we're responsible for turning in sales tax and stuff, um, and all that. But like it was a $20 fee for the month, and I was tempted to try it. I thought about it, but at the same time, I was just like, how much traffic does this place get? When we were in there the one day, there was a few people coming in and out, but I think that might have been on a junk weekend. They do some things in our town where it's like a big event where they'll have like all of the antique junk stores will have stuff out and all that jazz. And they try to make an event of it for the town, and then there's like a big junk fair at one of the farm properties and all that. And so they try to make it a big event. I wasn't sure if the amount of people were coming in there was just abnormal because of the event that weekend, or if that was pretty standard. But looking at the stuff that was in there, got paint all over me. That's all right. We can wipe our hands on this shirt. The shirt's not a good shirt. That's what white undershirts are for, that the husband doesn't want anymore, right? So we can use those. And they get paint on them, so what? Um Whereabouts in the world are you? You're in upstate New York, near the Albany area. Oh, interesting. Um, we were looking at that area as a possible place to relocate to, but I think the taxes are just a little too high for us up there. We are currently in Northwest Arkansas. I'm originally from New Jersey, and the husband is originally from New Hampshire. So yeah, the New York state taxes are deadly, but I like the area and the wife grew up here, so we're here for the meantime. Yeah, that's kind of how we ended up here. I'm not a fan of being down here, and I'm really not a fan of the specific area that we are in. It used to be more of a farm community, but suburbitis seems to be taking over where a lot of the farmers are starting to sell their land because real estate exploded here during COVID, and it still seems to be going strong. And then all of a sudden people wanted to move here because it felt like such a small town. We love the small town feel, and I'm like, you guys realize that if you keep moving here, it's not going to feel like a small town anymore, right? But like real estate, people are still clamoring to get in here. The taxes for us aren't too bad. Um, Apparently the mother-in-law, her name's on the property and she gets a homestead rebate, but I don't know what it would be without that. But we're paying like under $500 a year in property taxes right now. Um, I would have preferred to stay in South Jersey, but we couldn't afford to. Your property's like 2 to 3 thousand. Yeah, like we had seen some that might have barely been doable, like up near Niagara Falls, but it was going to be really tight. And that was if it didn't go up. Um, Taxes in South Jersey, not much better. There was like real, I don't want to say complete shitholes, but real tiny properties, like barely more room than a studio apartment that were like 1,200, and that's just out of our budget right now, and I'm just like, oh god, that's gonna be difficult. So we definitely can't afford to go to New Hampshire. That's worse than South Jersey. And so we might actually relocate eventually in a few years. It depends on what happens. To Virginia. I saw some properties that seemed to be comparable tax-wise to what we're paying here for the most part. But here we also pay personal property tax along with the real estate property tax. So, um, our property tax also includes like taxes on vehicles, trailers, that sort of thing. I guess if you had a boat, you'd be paying extra taxes on that too. And that's yearly. It has gone down the past couple of years, what we're paying, and we're not sure why. Um, we're a little confused. Because, like, the one year we paid it, it was just under 500. The next year, it was like 300 and change. And then the next year, it was still 300 and change, but it was a little less than the year before. And now this year, it's below 300 and we're like sitting here scratching our heads. We're like, but why? I mean, I don't want to bitch that it went down. I'm happy it went down, but I'm just real confused. I don't know if it's because the value on the cars has decreased, because the cars are old. Um, he's got a Corolla from like 2013. His mom has a Corolla that's 2012. I don't know if that's why, because the car values have gone down. I don't know. We don't have car inspection here. I think that's why we have yearly property tax on even personal property. I don't know. I don't understand it here. I was tempted to register for a business license to maybe do a booth in one of the junk stores, but I'm also not sure if I want to do that if we're relocating eventually. Might just wait until we get wherever we're going. Might just reopen the eBay store. I had an eBay store for a little while and it was doing okay-ish. Not many hits, but you know, I was getting a hit here and there. Sold a few pieces. And then I was like, oh, maybe I should be on Etsy. So I went to Etsy for a while, and Etsy was killing me, man. The fees from Etsy. I was paying more in fees than I ever sold on stuff. And I'm like, how are these other people doing it? Are like, this is ridiculous. Just ridiculous. I really wish that TV hanging above my head would stop making that noise. We have a TV on an arm, like on a wall mount. It's kind of above my head. And every so often it sounds like somebody pushed the power button on. And I don't know why it does that. It's not plugged in. So that doesn't make any sense. Alright, I'm gonna need to do a second coat on that one, but I need that to dry. I'm gonna do this one and this. I'm not sure what we pay for school taxes. Because this property, like, I only partially pay attention to that because the husband's name is supposedly on the deed with the mother-in-law. Because she bought this before he moved up to South Jersey with me. And we were up there for a while, and then circumstances changed. Life lifed. A whole lot of drama and whatnot there. I've talked about it in older live streams. And we ended up down here. So I know there's a breakdown somewhere, and we just got the paperwork for the taxes for this year. And we had gone and picked up a copy at the tax office when we had to get our real IDs. And we thought it wasn't correct because of what they gave us. And we're like, what? We're looking at the amount, and husband's like, I don't think everything's on here. He goes, this might just be the cars. And he's like, I don't think the house is on here. And I was like, okay. He's like, we'll have to wait and see when we get the official paperwork when the year turns over. And we just got the official paperwork from the county assessor, and I'm real confused because it's the same dollar amount that they gave us in the office, and I'm like, ain't this too low? Can someone explain to me why this keeps going down? I don't know. But we saw some properties in a couple towns in Southern Virginia that what people were paying the past couple of years in taxes looks similar to what we've been paying here. So that might be where we end up attempting to relocate to. Just not a fan of this area. I know you can get tornado warnings everywhere, but we've been getting a lot more warnings, and we've actually had a couple go through our town. We didn't have any damage at our property, but my nerves are having a real hard time with that. And I'm gonna do another coat on those sections. But this area, man. Um I try not to go into politics, and we generally don't, because politics can be messy. But sorry, I'm trying to pick another paintbrush. This area's been getting a little much lately for us. Let's try this one. And I don't know if I want to really settle in too much here. Colonial blue was the sky. This was the dark color. Okay, this was clouds. This was the dark color for the mountain. This is the lighter color for the mountain. Okay. Sorry, I had to get my colors straight here. But, I don't know. I mean, the cost of living isn't too terrible here, but at the same time, I don't know. I'm just, the tap water isn't great. It always smells funny. They get it from a lake. We never know if we're okay to drink it, because we'll get notices in the mail months after an incident. Be like, oh yeah, the state did a water check here and found this level to be elevated. It was still within safe drinking parameters, but we went ahead and dumped a bunch of chemicals in it and sent it off for further testing. And you'll be like getting this letter in October, and they did this testing in August, and I'm like, why are we just finding out about this now? Like, what? I don't know, just him and I are not happy with this area. Plus, it's getting really super hot down here in the summer, and he doesn't handle the heat very well. I don't like that this one has bristles sticking out the side because it's leaving a mark. Yeah. We're gonna switch that. That's probably why that wasn't in my main use. Alright, we'll go back to the other one then. But there's a couple cities that I'm looking at in Southern Virginia. It's closer to home than where we are now, which is a plus. And there's no real public transportation here, and I don't drive. So if I think your delivery is here. Hey, hey, husband, husband. Oh, I'm talking to someone that's not here. When did he leave the room? He usually has noise canceling headphones on, so it takes me several tries to get his attention a lot of the time. Because when I'm streaming, he doesn't pay attention to what I'm saying. He just kind of ignores me and tunes me out. Um, I'm doing this right now. He's on disability. Um, he fought long and hard to get on disability while I was still trying to work. I get migraines a lot, and I was gonna try to go back to work, and he's like, "No, I don't want you to right now." He's like, "We're okay at the moment." Um, but if we move, I'm gonna have to go back to work, which is fine. I understand that because we'll have bills to pay, and they'll be in our names instead of um my mother-in-law's name, because this property is technically her problem. She's not here very often. She's here at the moment, but she's been doing a lot of traveling with her sister, and we've just been kind of caretaking the place. But my mom also lives here too. It's a long story. My dad was here as well. He passed away 3 years ago? 2 years ago? I'm terrible with time. 2 to 3 years ago. I know that's terrible that I can't remember, but time blurs together for me. And I'm a real bad judge of time passing. I don't fully remember. It was 2 to 3 years ago. Um, Husband was having real bad anxiety issues. Where he was even having trouble leaving the house for a while, which also made it difficult for me to try to get to work when there's no public transportation around here. When we lived in South Jersey, I just took the bus to work, and that was fine. Like, I had ways to get around. But we're like out here in the middle of farmland. There's sort of some sort of public transportation in the next town, like the next big town up from us, but that's like a good 15-20 minutes from here. 30 if traffic's bad. And it's tied into the University of Arkansas, so it doesn't always run reliably. Like if school's out for the summer, it's like a real restricted schedule and stuff because it's mostly like anybody could use it, but it was mostly there for the college kids. Um from what I understand. But he was having real bad anxiety issues and also real bad depression issues. They were trying to get him medicated, but the medication only does so much. And he was, they had him like doing counseling and this doctor, that doctor, and the one counselor's like, you need to go and get an official diagnosis for your anxiety so we can try to um pursue disability because the medication just it wasn't working. And then the one medication he was on, he ended up with like serotonin poisoning where he got too much of it, and that was crazy. That's scary. Watching somebody deal with that. he became a totally different person. He was talking so fast, he was slurring, and I could not understand what he was saying. Like, I'm like, stop. He wasn't diagnosed. Does the SO have? He wasn't diagnosed with ADHD, but I suspect. When he went for his anxiety issue to get that officially diagnosed, and the paperwork came back with his diagnosis, they said he had, or no, they kind of told him before he left at the end of his assessment that he had what they would consider Asperger's, but they don't call it Asperger's anymore. Um, so he had to go through this whole thing. We had to end up getting a lawyer involved because he kept getting denied. And the one medical evaluation for disability that did a phone interview with him, she's like, I don't believe you have autism because you've been able to give me eye contact and stuff, but some people that are autistic can kind of hold eye contact if it's been like drilled into their head since they were younger. I have a problem with that. So yeah, he does have autism. Um and some days are better than others. Some days are worse than others. Um After his evaluation, he's like, I think you need to get evaluated. And I'm like, huh? He goes, I think you need to get evaluated. And I'm like, I don't know. And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, I don't know. It could just be me being weird. He goes, no, no. He goes, I'm pretty sure after the way I answered questions and the way the evaluation went and the things that they were asking me and stuff, he goes, like, they had this one thing that they put in front of him, like on a computer screen to try to figure out. He goes, your brain would have exploded. He goes, there's no way. He goes, I'm pretty sure. And I'm like, I don't know. And he goes, yeah. He goes, I am. He goes, I'm. He goes, there's no way that you don't have it to some level. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm on the fence. We haven't gotten me assessed yet. I do have dyslexia. Um, and I have really shitty working memory. And it had never been explained to me, or if it had been explained to me, I blocked it out, or didn't understand. But I think nobody ever actually explained it to me. When I was in grade school, because I grew up in the 80s. Girls didn't have autism, girls didn't have learning disabilities. This is a boy issue, you know? I was born in 81. So they had me in child study team classes, is what they called them, where they pulled me out of. No, you're November 81? Yeah, I'm August 81. So, they would constantly pull me out of classes. And it was either when we were, what was it? I think it was mostly when we were doing English lessons, like structure, like English grammar lessons. I'm trying to figure out how to word this. Like sentence structure and this is a noun, this is an adverb, all that shit. It seems to be during those times when they would pull me out of like my regular class or the group class and pull me across the hall with different teachers with special ed teachers. And I gotta be honest, the stuff that I remember doing with them, I don't understand what it was supposed to do. It felt like busy work that didn't make sense. Check outside. I thought I heard a door slam. Where were you anyway?
Took a shower.
Oh, I was sitting here like trying to get your attention. I didn't even know you walked out of the room.
Sorry.
I'm like, why aren't you answering me? And I looked over and you weren't there. Um, like, they had this stupid, like, wooden cup that kind of looked like an ice cream cone that had a wooden ball on a string attached to it. And I remember them trying to make me catch the ball in the cup repeatedly. And I'm like, why? I'm like, what in fresh hell does this have to do with English grammar? Um, like, I didn't understand why I was there. And it made no sense to my brain. And nobody ever really explained what the point of this was. One time they had us making candles with ice and candle wax. And I was so confused. I'm like, okay. Another time they had us like writing pen pal letters to somebody, and I'm like, okay. It it seriously felt like they didn't know what to do with us. And so to keep us from being a problem in the main class, they shoved us over there. Apparently, they told my mom at one point that my hands were not strong and that I had such poor strength in my hands that she had to go out and buy Crayola modeling clay. Not Model Magic. Model Magic didn't exist. And not Play-Doh. Specifically, Crayola modeling clay that comes in like a long rectangle, and inside the rectangle it's like a wax paper wrapped rectangle of 4 tubes. Like 4 tubes is a bad description. Like 4 rolls of clay. Specifically this clay because it doesn't dry out. And it was I don't know if tough is the right word. Um you had to like really get your fingers into it, and you had to really work with it in order to make anything with it. And I had to use this to try to strengthen my hands. And I'm like, okay. So that was a thing for a while where whenever I was over there, they had me using that. I'm like, what does this have to do with anything? And I don't even remember half of the shit they had me doing, to be perfectly honest. But none of it really stuck out as meaning anything. And there's just a couple of weird things that I can remember. I also seem to have a poor working memory. Um, I was under the impression that I had to do these classes because I had a poor memory. I can remember a bunch of shit at times, depending on how much it's been ingrained in my brain and why I had to learn it. But if it's something that I have to quickly recall that I may have just learned a few minutes ago, I don't know if I'm going to remember that. Like, I have to take a bunch of notes. Like, when I'm learning a new job, like, I had notes galore everywhere. When I had to learn how to be a cashier for my first job, I had all kinds of notes written down because I'm the person that panics. So I'm like, oh crap, what was it? What was it? What was it? And I'm like, I get flustered when I can't remember. So I would be like writing all of the things down. I had pages and pages of notes for my casino job. Um, when I had to learn how to do that. And it's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm also the type of person that will drive people crazy because I'm like, but what if this? But what if that happens? Okay, so what do I do if this happens? Like, I need X, Y, and Z options. Yes, yes, I am. You're gonna, yes. Um, like, Because I need to have some idea of what I'm supposed to do if I'm in a situation where there's no one else I can ask. And I'm on my own. The 10 million questions before anything could ever. Yes. So, like, I'll try to do it the way I'm being taught, and then I'll have a thought pop in my head, but I'm like, well, what if this goes wrong? Like, what if this machine won't do the thing? What do I need to do if this like left field like 1 in 500 people situation happens? And like the people that were training me were like, what? Like that never happens. I'm like, yeah, but what if it does? And then they're like, well, um I guess ask so and so. And I'm like, okay, that's an answer. That's fine. As long as I know who to go to if something strange happens. Yeah, but what if it does? Like, it's me. If it can go wrong, it will. So, this is what I have learned. If it's gonna go wrong, it's gonna go wrong with me. If that 1 in 700 people situation happens, it's gonna happen with me. I've had it happen. So now I need to know the what if. And I drive people crazy with it. They're like, that's not gonna happen. I'm like, but what if it does? But the kicker is then they decide that I'm the person that has to train other people. And I'm real uncomfortable with that. And I'm like, but I barely know what I'm doing. And they're like, no, you're fine. I'm like, I don't know about this. And they're like, you're fine. Just tell them how you do it. And I'm like, okay. Hey, Zorts, how are you today? Like, my casino job, I hated that job with passion. I'm not a real. I get real nervous with people. You're okay? Oh, that's something. At least you're not terrible. Like, I get real anxious. Um, like every day going to work was a nervous issue to begin with. Like, just every day. Absolute dread. And I had to kiss up to rich people working in the casino because I worked in the in-house line of credit department. You gotta flip your sleep schedule. You have to be. The fuck? What did you do that you have to be trained? Is this for a promotion? Or did you get something fucked up and they have to retrain you? What happened? What is the meaning of this insanity for a night shifter?
Cones.
Oh, okay. Who are you talking to?
Your mom.
Oh, I didn't know she was outside.
Mm-hmm.
Um, hated that job with a passion. So we were in the in-house line of credit department. I was not comfortable dealing with tons of people in a day, and my job before that, I worked front end. I was a front end supervisor at a craft store for AC Moore at the location that I was in. Um, every day, it was just a bundle of nerves and anxiety, having to go in, finding out what the hell I fucked up the day before because my brain transposed stuff. Um, and they insisted that I was going to be their lead cashier, their lead front end supervisor, and their manager trainer, which I wasn't happy about. I'm like, do I get a raise? No. So you're going to have me train all of the manager trainees coming through the store that are going to other locations, that are training to be assistant managers in other spots, but you're not even going to give me a raise. Not even a 25-cent raise. No. Okay. Sure. Whatever you say. They're bringing new production line up, so you and one of the operators have to go in tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday to get trained on how it runs. A lot of new automation and shit on it. Oh, Jesus. Ugh. That. They can't train you during your normal shift. See, this is the kind of shit I don't understand. A brand new thing, they're gonna flip your sleep schedule, so now you're really gonna be out of it. And probably not giving your full attention because you're so damn out of whack. When they could have very easily come in during your shift and trained you during the time that you're the most alert. That's kind of bullshit. But such is the life of working somewhere with 3 shifts. They expect you to jump and come in during the shift that the trainer is on instead of the trainer coming in for you. That always pisses me off. Well, hopefully it won't be too bad. But yeah, I hated that casino job with a passion cuz I had to deal with so many people in a day. If I could have just sat there and done the data entry, I would have been fine cuz we had all kinds of paperwork we had to fill out. Um we were constantly sitting there um putting in bank reports that came back from our bank checking company, um updating people's files that have been in pretty regularly. So if they've been in with X amount of time, we have to update a credit report, we have to update a bank information, and then we have to run those reports and then enter them into their file in the computer and into their hard copy paper file. All that I was fine with. I was fine with doing the filing. I was fine with reorganizing the files, which I had to do. I didn't have to do, but I started doing it. Because we had someone new join the department. And I don't know if it was them or somebody just being lazy, but we had a certain system for when we pulled a file out. We would pull the file out behind it and leave it stick out a little bit so that way we could have a faster time of refiling them. And everything was like alphabetical last name stuff. So when you're refiling at 4 a.m. from the work that the overnight executives were working on and reviewing, it's like, oh, last name starts with an A. You go through the A's and you're looking at, okay, this is like A and whatever. And then you're like, okay, A and O. This one's sticking out. What's this last name? Okay. And then you're matching it to the one that you have in your hand. Okay, this goes in front. Not faster, right? Well, we couldn't prove it was the new person because the people, we weren't the only ones that could touch those files. We were supposed to be, but the people that actually issued the what they called markers were, which basically the in-house line of credit checks to those on the tables, if they needed a signature check that they couldn't see in the computer out at the the card tables or whatever, they would call back to what they called the check bank, and they would ask them to verify the signature. So the person working in the check bank would either have to come to us and ask us to get them the file, which is what they were supposed to do, or the ones that had been there forever, they're like, fuck this. They would go and get the file themselves and bring it over to the check bank that they were right next to each other. They had to go maybe 10 steps. And they would show them the signature, the hard copy of the signature. For some reason, it wasn't in the computer system. They were not supposed to refile it to ensure that it went back in the right place. They were supposed to put it on this one shelf or desk near our file cabinets. Because these filing cabinets were monsters. They were very heavy. They have like a little captain ship wheel that we had to turn to move them to get in between the rows because they were heavy. It wasn't like a standard little office filing cabinet that you could just pull the drawer out. No, these were We had these plastic buckets that hung on these metal bars, and we had the files sitting in there. It was a whole thing. I couldn't take a picture of it because I wouldn't be allowed to, but I don't work there anymore anyway. But it was massive. Um, and we can't prove that someone in that bank wasn't the one doing it. I mean, if we really wanted to get petty about it, they could have had somebody check the tapes for who was filing because the cameras were everywhere. But even so, you couldn't really prove it unless they could see the name on the file. But we think it was the one new guy that started, because right when he started was about when the files started getting misplaced, shall we say. And it's a real big problem when files get misplaced because we need to be able, because of state regulations in New Jersey, we needed to be able to produce the hard copy of the file at the drop of a dime. Especially when they needed it, if that person walked in and their file had to get updated so that they could pull their line of credit, or if legal needed it for subpoena purposes and we had to make a dummy copy of the file to give to the lawyers to take to court to try to get the money back. There was plenty of reasons why we needed to be able to get these files right away. And it started out where I was coming in at night and there'd be notes up on our bulletin board with stickers, because we had letter stickers for the first 3 letters of a last name on the end of the folders. So it'd be like, okay, this person's file is missing. We need to find this ASAP. So there'd be multiple clerks throughout the day as they got a slow moment trying to find this file. Half the time, I was the one that ended up finding it. I was finding like A's in the Z's, and I'm like, what the heck? And like W's in the S's, and I'm like, okay. So then, because I was overnight and most of my shifts were during the week, it was fairly quiet in there during the week. Like, they had me work, see, I had to work Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. Sunday night could be a crapshoot, whether or not, it could go either way. Friday night was busy, Saturday night was busy. Monday night was dead as a doornail, most nights. Usually by like 11 p.m., wasn't much going on, and we were struggling to stay awake. So, if there was no pressing paperwork that I had to deal with, like, I have to stay awake all night. Well, the clerks that were before me all day, like, we got a printout of what files had to get updated during the day. We'd get printouts of bank reports that came back that needed to get entered into the computer. If there wasn't a whole lot that happened during the day, if it wasn't busy and they got all the work done, I had nothing to do when I came in. I was literally there in case a customer came in, because they couldn't have table games open without a credit executive in the office. And the credit executive couldn't make any decisions on a file if they were the person that ran the paperwork on it. Fair enough. Trying to keep everything on the up and up and no funny business happening. Because I had to sign every single piece of paperwork. I had to sign the paperwork itself. There was like a little worksheet in the beginning of the folders for what reports were run. I had to sign and initial all those with my license number. Like my license number became like name, rank, serial number for somebody in the military. I can't remember it now because I haven't used it in so long. But we had to like memorize that. And it was a lot. So I'd come in and have nothing to do. I was allowed to read, but I also had to look busy at times so that we could justify my job. um Especially towards the end when it was really really slow. um so oh shit, that's the wrong color. Um, so I would be sitting there. I hated filing, by the way, because of the dyslexia. I hated it. So I normally didn't file. But because of the dyslexia, I was triple checking everything. So it also kind of worked to my advantage at times. Um, where I was super, super careful. It's when my being super careful would lapse slightly, is when mistakes would happen. But I had nothing but time some nights if I didn't have any customers. So I would just start grabbing these plastic buckets and ripping them out alphabetically from the uh the um the filing rows and bringing them back to my desk so I could also keep an eye on the front counter in case somebody walked up. And I'd be sitting there pulling out every file and making sure it was in alphabetical order. I think I found a couple files that we'd been looking for a while. And I was just like, okay. But that was like going to be a never ending cycle as long as this one dude was working there. I trained him twice. Twice. When it was slow and it was a night that he wasn't there, or if he was at lunch, I was sitting there writing him out as clearly as I could, note after note after note, for what to do with X. Pages of notes. I think at one point I was going to start typing them just to make sure he could read my handwriting. I was printing as neatly as I could, painstakingly neatly, so that this guy had a reference. This guy, we had been under the impression that, I don't know if he lied or if he just didn't understand English that well. He seemed to be, I don't know if he was originally from a different area of the world or what. It kind of seemed that way. Maybe. Um, when the director had talked to him and interviewed him, he got the impression that the guy was a waiter at one of the other casinos in town. Okay, not a big deal. All right, so you're working, you're taking restaurant orders from customers, so you're writing stuff down. Okay. You're communicating with people, which is what we had to do. We needed to communicate clearly with the customers coming up to the window because we're dealing with their finances. So we needed to make sure we could clearly understand each other and understand what we were putting into the computer. Fine, it was a whole huge melting pot in that place, in all of Atlantic City. There was people from everywhere. There's people from parts of Africa, the Caribbean islands, India, Afghanistan, you name it. There was people that worked in there from all different walks of life. Fine, whatever. I don't care. As long as we can communicate with each other and I can understand you and you can understand me, I don't care. Um when when he came in and I got saddled with training him, within the first 10 minutes, I was very confused. Because he would say to me, okay, when I explained something, and just stand there and look at me. And I'm like, I'm a real anxious muffin. This is making me even more anxious. Are we not understanding each other? Like, I don't understand. Yeah, I'm just like, I'm like, okay, so do the thing. And they're like, what? How? And I'm like, okay, so you have, this is how you sign into the computer system. Like, first initial, last name, And then you have this code that you put in. I don't know what your code is. They would have given it to you, or they would have had you pick one when you go to sign in. So you have to pick a number. It might have been part of our social security number so we could remember it and track it. I can't remember. It's been too long now. I blanked a lot of that job out. And he's like, okay. And I'm like, okay, I need you to sign in. Yeah. You're guessing you got the deer in headlights look, and that's, yeah. Yeah, just this like blank, like, what? Didn't try to take any notes on his own at all. And one of the nights that he wasn't there, one of the execs had said to me, so how's his training going? And I looked at him, I'm like, do you want an honest answer? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, not well. I feel like I'm not talking to anybody. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, I'm talking to them. And they're saying okay and nodding their head. But then when I ask them to do the thing I just told them, nothing. Nothing. I have to go step by step. Now that could just be that they were nervous. I get that. I can be quite overwhelmed at times learning new things. I get that. I've been there. That is me in a nutshell. I get overwhelmed in new situations, but I'm also the type of person that needs to do it for it to stick. So, okay, you want me to do this. Let me write that down. It's done in this order. Okay, now let me try to do the thing. Um and then you can correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. Nothing. I had to almost put his hands on the keyboard and have him type at times. It felt like I didn't lay a hand on him, but it felt like that. And I'm like, okay, hit this button. And I'd have to wait for him to hit the button. I'm like, okay, now we're gonna, it was, I don't want to say it was pulling teeth, but I just didn't understand. Now, yes, it was a big change from, being a server or a waiter and taking food orders from people, but at the same time, there was no back and forth with them in English. They spoke very little to me, which was also really awkward. And I'm like, okay, usually servers are a little bit more chatty with the people. Maybe it was just cuz he wasn't comfortable yet, cuz it is a lot. That department was a lot to take in, to just be thrown in there. I get that. But at the same time, there was not even like nervous conversation or anything. Um it just I taught him how to answer the phone for hours one shift because the phone wouldn't stop ringing. And that was one of the things we had to do, was answer the phone. We didn't know if it was a customer that was going to be calling. We didn't know if it was another casino that was going to be calling. Because we did do casino calls where we would call other properties where people had lines of credit at to check on a line. See how much they owed. Can you update me on their status? Are they active? Have they been in recently? What's their credit line? Do you have an updated bank report that I could maybe borrow until we can get our own? Like, how old was your bank report? Because we were allowed to do that temporarily until we could get our own if we were having trouble getting a bank report right there on the spot, because banks didn't want to talk to us if the bank was even available. Um, that was a whole nother matter. But the guy just I don't know. I don't know if it was because it was me and it was a girl that was trying to teach him. Could have been. But if that was the case, he was going to have a really rough time because that department had two guys in it, and one was my dad and he had retired. We couldn't be on the same shift. He had to stop working for medical issues. Um, but there was one other guy there, and he was only there sometimes. He was very much part-time. He wasn't there all the time. And he was a different shift entirely. But I'd be sitting there and I'd hear him talking to the other cashiers in whatever language they spoke. I don't know what it was. And he'd be fine. And I'm like, what the fuck? Do you just not understand me? Do you not understand the English equivalent to what's happening here? Like, is this a language barrier issue in the training? Maybe. I wasn't sure. So I had said to the executive, I said, what did he do again? And they're like, we believe he was a server. And I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure? And they're like, we'll double check. It turns out, now there's nothing wrong with this. Nothing wrong with it at all. But I understood now more. I think his grasp of what the words meant in English versus his language wasn't there. Because, and I get it, English is a tough language to learn with all of its double meanings and all that shit. I get it. I've learned French, and from what I understand, people say English is really tough when you don't speak it as your main language. Fair enough. You know, I'm not going to hold that against anybody. But it turned out he wasn't a server, he was a busser and was I think washing dishes or something. And I'm like, okay, that makes a lot more sense. Just because I didn't understand how this man was taking food orders from people and all their little idiosyncrasies, maybe? Intricateness of how people are picky with their food, right? Oh, well, can I not get that? Can I get this? Like, I'm like, you have to understand something and be able to converse with people if you're taking food orders from them. Bussing the tables makes a lot more sense because you're not really talking that much to other people, and it's, except maybe your coworkers, you're not really dealing with the customer as much. Like, you're there around them, but you're not necessarily directly interacting with them your entire shift specifically. So they put him on his own. He had been training for almost 2 months, mostly with me, a couple nights a week that I was off with somebody else on the nights that he was there. They put him on his own one night, and they put him with the more knowledgeable exec who was more willing to help out the clerks if we were behind or if we had multiple customers in the office. She would she might print the paperwork, but we had to sign off on it and stuff, and we trusted her. She knew what she was doing. She'd been there long enough where, you know, fine, whatever, especially if we were real busy and trying to get people in and out of the office, or we had a high roller that had a very high credit line and we needed to move quickly with. And they would call to the back office where we were if they couldn't see us from the counter to get our attention. So they would call back to us and ask us to pull a file for them, or run this report or that report sometimes. Or, can you come up to the counter? I need you. The one night he was alone, she called back to get his attention, to ask him to do something. And she said the phone must have rang almost 50 times and he wasn't answering it, and she could see him sitting there. And she was trying to get his attention to come up to the counter. And he finally did. And then she's like, okay, I need you to do this. And he's like, okay, and kind of had like the blank stare again. And she finally got to see firsthand what I had been telling her had been going on. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm just not the right person to train him. I don't feel like I'm being effective. We're trying. Um, we were trying everything we could, and they definitely did have to start scheduling him on his own because of vacations in the department, and they needed him for a time slot. Um, because they could only do so much overtime to cover that time slot. And she said to me, she goes, I gave him a phone call from another casino, and he couldn't figure out what they wanted. And instead of putting them on hold, he just hung up on them. And he he couldn't even get her a file from the back, and we're like, "Oh my god." I'm like, "I don't know what to tell you all. The notes I gave him are in his mailbox back here. Like, I will type them out if you think he'll be able to understand them better." My handwriting can be messy and chaotic, but I was going so slow when I was writing all of that out. And I even gave if or and options of, if this happens, do this. If that happens, do that. If this computer won't work, you might have to restart it. If that still doesn't work, you might have to call IT, like, or let the exec know and then call IT if they want you to. Sometimes they'll call up to IT. Like, we had our own share of computer issues. The one day our scanning computer was not cooperating, or the scanner wasn't cooperating, and like my dad and I could do a little bit with it, but sometimes we couldn't get it to cooperate. And I'm just like, when I left, he was still there. They had talked to me about becoming a key license. So there were different levels of licenses in New Jersey for the casinos. Um, I don't know if he's still there. The director that was my boss when I was there isn't there anymore. I don't know if he retired or if they fired him or laid him off. They might have laid him off because I think the one exec that I worked with the most ended up becoming the director. I think she was only supposed to be the director temporarily, and they just never hired anybody else, was my understanding, and she did not want to be the director. But they tried to get me to get a key license. So there was housekeeping had to get licensed, I believe. Um, Housekeeping had a union. We did not have a union. Those that were casino games dealers. Um, so, and anybody that had to, well, no, because housekeeping had escorts. So housekeepers had their own type of license. Table games had their own type of license. And because our department was tied in to table games, we had to have the table games license. Even though we touched no money, no chips, no checks, no cash, nothing. And we didn't touch any of the games. Like, we weren't dealers, but we were roped in with their department. We actually had to have the same uniforms as the table games dealers, which was confusing at times. Um, but we had to wear their same shirts. Um, although oddly enough, when table games briefly, was it briefly or were they still part of that when I left? They might have still been part of it. Table games ended up joining the United Auto Workers Union, which I didn't really understand, but I was like, okay. But we did not for our department because while we were tied together, we were different. Or they just gave us their uniforms for, okay, we know where you belong. I don't know. It was very confusing. But, so they all had one license level. And then if you were to make any kind of decisions on stuff, then you had to have a key license. I would have been considered a dual rate key license because they wanted to put me on the front desk in the executive office to be up front and constantly in the customers' faces and having to deal with them at the front desk of our department. Um, when they didn't have an actual executive available. So I would have been a dual rate, which meant I could work in the back or up front, but not at the same time. Because if you make a decision on a file, you couldn't do the paperwork on the file, checks and balances. More hands means less funny business can be gotten away with, according to the Casino Control Commission of New Jersey and all of their red tape. But I did not want that. They almost talked me into it because they were like kind of pressuring me and they're like, oh, you do this, you'll get paid a lot more money, but only when you're on the desk. So if I was on the desk, I'd be getting like $17 to $19 an hour. And in the back, I think when I left, what was I making when I left? Was it $11 when I left or was it 14? No, it couldn't have been 14. That would have been really hard to walk away from. Um Maybe it was 11.14 an hour. I keep thinking the number 14. 14, 11? 11, 14. I was there about 6 years. I think 6-ish, maybe 7. I started out at $9. 11 seems more appropriate for how they did the raises. Because I had to take a pay cut from when I was at the craft store so that they could get me in because I didn't have any experience. And I remember at the craft store I was making $9.50 when I left there, which was extremely ridiculously low for what I had to do. Might have been like 11. It was a big jump, so maybe it was 11. But I was only going to get that rate when I was working the desk. Which sounded good in theory, but then, I would have been paying more in taxes on the weeks that I was working out there. And if I was only out there one night, well, that's gone in taxes. So I'm like, I don't know if this is really beneficial for me. Because I would have also had to go and buy my own clothes. In the back, I was in a uniform. If I was on the desk, I had to be like pantsuit, dress suit, dress shirt, blazers. Like, we had to look good. I didn't have any clothes for that. I had no kind of business attire. I was a grunt in the back that wore a uniform shirt. I had like safety pins in my pants to keep them up off the ground, like, because none of my pants were the right length. And I'm like, and you, yeah, okay, I have to go out and buy clothes now. Probably would have had to spend a couple $100s on clothes. And I'm like, I don't want to be making decisions on credit files. Especially after the one night that, or morning, that I had to witness my exec of the morning being cussed out by another customer because they were drunk and wanted an increase, and she was trying to stall, telling them no, because it was not going to go over well. And she couldn't even make the decision on his file to begin with. She needed the exec who was asleep. And she was having trouble waking him up. She needed the director. And he had taken a sleeping pill and gone to bed because he had trouble sleeping. And she was having trouble waking his ass up. She was trying to get him to go have some breakfast and have some coffee and maybe get tired enough to go to bed to sleep off his drunkenness, because she could tell he was drunk by the way he was behaving. And she personally didn't want to give him the increase. He had already had a temporary increase that you can only have once, like every 45 days, I think. Or maybe it's 30 days. And he owed his lines at every single casino that he had one around town. And he might have also been at his limit outside of town, like out in Vegas. And she's like, I don't want to do this. So then he started cussing her out, and she was fine until he started cussing her mother. And she flipped out and started cussing him back, which is a cardinal no-no. You have to take it, which is wrong, but that was the casino policy. You had to stand there and take it. And he got her fired. So I'm like, I don't want to be in that position. That's a bad position to be in. I don't want to do that. That's horrible. So I had to turn that position down. And then I found out that I was supposed to have an executive in the office at 4 a.m. I worked overnights. I worked midnight to 8. Well, that was my normal shift. For a while, I worked 8 to 4 for a long time. And then they laid me off. They were supposed to lay off other people in the department. The director did not approve me getting laid off, but they laid me off anyway, and he was pissed. Like, I had come in and, like, I think, did he call me, or did I have to come in? I think I had to come in because I had to turn in uniform shirts and stuff. And, I was a mess. I was crying. I was upset. I'm like, what do you mean? And, he's like, you weren't supposed to be laid off. He goes, I specifically told them not to lay you off, that I needed you. And they went and laid you off anyway. He goes, I didn't approve this. I'm fighting with them to get you rehired. He's like, don't get another job yet. He goes, just kind of chill on unemployment for a little bit. I'm working on it. And I'm like, okay. But unemployment also has specific requirements where you had to make it at least look like you were looking for another job. And I was starting to get nervous because they were starting to put requirements on me. They're like, well, if you don't do X, Y, or Z within the next, like, 3 weeks, you're hitting your 6-month limit. It might not get extended. And I was like, well, what the fuck am I gonna do? I was considering going and applying at Michael's Crafts because I'm like, I gotta work. I need money. I've got bills to pay. I had a couple collections that had to pay. And they didn't want to hear that I had gotten laid off, and so I was getting real nervous, and he finally called me. He goes, "Look," he goes, "I've got you rehired. They finally agreed to rehire you, but it's part-time. They wouldn't agree to bring you back full-time yet." He goes, "And I understand that's not what you were before." He goes, "But it gets your foot back in the door. So that way, after a couple of months, we can bring you up to full-time again." And I was not happy. I was like, "You've got to be fucking kidding me." And I'm like, "All right, at least it's a place I know, I guess, and people that I'm used to dealing with, and it's a job I already know. Um, Not real happy with it, but what am I gonna do?" Um, so I went along with it, and it turned out that he had a secretary that like handled his stuff. Well, they were doing away with the secretary positions. She used to be a nun, but she wasn't a nun anymore. And she was, since they were doing away with her position, she was just going to retire. I think she was in her 80s or something. Like I don't think she necessarily had to work, but she was bored and was like, "That's fine." So I think she just ended up retiring because she came in at like 4 in the morning. Um, but when they did away with her position and she retired, I didn't get her schedule. Her schedule would have been like 4 in the morning to noon. They gave me 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. And I'm like, "What the fuck is this?" I'm like, why? Why are we working 2 a.m. to 10 a.m.? Why? What is this madness? I was like, "You're telling me I gotta come in on the bus at 2 a.m.?" This was in Atlantic City. Um, and the town I lived in at the time wasn't much better. And I'm like, uh, right. I'm like, I don't want to travel at that time of night by myself. So, you know what I had to do? The nights that my dad was available, he dropped me off. The nights that he wasn't available, I took the bus in with Russell, and Russell had to start at midnight. So we would be coming in at 11, and I would have to sit upstairs in the cafeteria till it was time for my shift to start. Because I did not want to travel the bus at that time of night. And at that time of night, the bus that dropped off a block up from the casino I worked at stopped running. So I would have had to take a bus into the center of the city and then walk through the city on my own at that time of night to our property, which was probably a good, what would you say? It was about a good 10-minute fast walk, 15 if it was slow, through the city. I was like, "Yeah, no, I'm not doing that." so, so those were my options. I was really not happy about that. If I was working a night that Russell wasn't, then he would wait at the earlier bus stop with me. So I wasn't alone out there at like 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. But what can I do? That was the shift they had to put me on. Though I will say a lot of the time I didn't stay till 10 a.m. because I was exhausted. So depending on what exec was on shift, if the replacement, like my, I don't even know if she was really my replacement. The day clerk usually came in at 9 a.m. half the time I was leaving at like 9. I'm like, this is so dumb. There's not enough work for us to both be here. There's like literally nothing happening right now. And that went on for a while until they were able to pull me back up to full time. And then when they pulled me back up to full time, um, I ended up on midnight to 8. And even then, depending on what executive I had in the morning, a lot of them would like let me bail at like 7:30 so I could catch an earlier bus to get home, which was extremely helpful. So I'm just taking some light blue paint. And these are one of the sticks that we use as part of our picture frame for our needle felted project. I did not have a palette knife that was really small enough to get in here. So I just clipped off the rounded end. And I'm just kind of using this as my palette knife. Just to try to get our shadowy snow worked in here. But that job was such a bundle of anxiety. I actually thought I was going to get fired one night because there were these guys that were kind of like being frat boy kind of attitude up at the window. And we had a lot of people that seemed
not there. Keep going.
to think that that line of credit on the casino was a cash advance on their credit card. So I had these guys that were up at the window and I thought they were just kind of fucking around. And they were asking what it was, and I was telling them about it. And guy goes, it's like, all right, I'll apply. And I'm like, all right, well, I need your bank account info. And after some fumbling, he did actually have it. And then I was like, okay, well, how much did you want to apply for? And he goes, $1,000,000. And I thought he was fucking around, right? Like, you know. And he goes, no, really, $1,000. I'm like, oh, okay. So I had like laughed a little bit, like nervously. I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, no. He goes, no. I was like, oh, okay, sure. Not the highest credit line that we had by any stretch of the means. Um, but I hadn't been there that long, so it kind of took me by surprise. I was like, oh, okay, sure. But I thought for sure I was gonna get fired for not like believing him at first. But no, he was cool. He didn't make a thing about it. So are we good back there? Crisis averted? We almost had a cat make a deposit on our bed, so of the hairball variety. I really did not want to do laundry or blankets today. Like, if we could avoid that, that would be great. So we definitely, you can see the grain of the canvas a little bit, or tooth, I guess. And we're trying to get just like Bob taught us, just a little roll of paint on the end of our sticky. The only thing is it's acrylic, so I don't have any mediums worked into this, so it takes a little bit of adding a little bit more paint here and there. So it definitely has those breaks in there. So it's not bad. I don't think I have enough of this mixed though. So I need to try to color match this. My fault for underestimating how much of this I was going to need. I would have just used a premix color, but I didn't have the right premixed color. That's pretty close. But I think I want a little bit more. I know you guys can't see my palette entirely. That might be a little bit lighter. But right before I left, they were talking about taking away my 4 a.m. executive. This is where I left off. I swear I have ADHD. And can't ever finish a story. You guys are allowed to tell me to circle back to the story if I don't finish it. By all means, I will not be offended. There's about 15 different trains of thought going through my head at any given time, and there's squirrels that are the conductors, so who knows where stuff is going to end up. But, they're like, well, we're going to have him start coming in and he was salary, so I don't know why they were going to start having him come in, unless he was hourly, but I thought he was salary. But, they're like, he's going to come in at 6 now. I was like, what? Like, he's gonna start coming in at 6, and if you need anything, you're gonna have to call the director. I'm like, I'm not comfortable calling the director and waking his ass up at 4:30 in the morning. On something that is under his need to deal with. Because, like, if somebody needed something on a credit line done that was 25,000 and below, or maybe it was 20,000 and below, the executives could do that on their own. But I think if it was over 25,000, they had to get the director. And I think anything that was over what the fuck was it? I think it was anything that was over 50,000. No, I'm sorry. 50,000? Yeah, 50,000. You had to have the director's okay and the executive that was in the office okay. And it just went up from there. Whose license numbers had to get tacked on to the approval rate. There were a couple of lines where if somebody had something done, I was entering 4 different approval license numbers or 4 different last names into the computer for, depending on how much it was. There was one particular line one night where I had to enter my name, the executive's name, the director's name, the director's boss's name, and then like the entire head of table games. Oh gosh, what was the biggest line I saw? Well, the asshole had a $6 million line. Or was it 8 million? Might have been 6 or 8 million. I don't know how active they were, but there were people, I think, with upwards of $15 million credit lines. I think. I know personally I saw 6 to 10 million a few times. The guy that cussed out my exec when I was there, his line was either 6 or 8 million, and I can't for the life of me remember which it was. And he was trying to get an increase. And there was something about it that the exec felt funny about it. She's like, something doesn't feel right. It was definitely him, though. And she wasn't comfortable doing it, and we really weren't supposed to give him any more. They could have tried to give him a permanent increase, but he's only supposed to have one of those every so often. And temporary was only once every so many days. And if they did give him a permanent increase, they had to give him enough of a permanent increase, because I saw this done a couple of times, but not very often, where the permanent increase had to be more than the temporary increase, because if they had put it in for the temporary increase amount, he still wouldn't have had anything available. Um, so they would have had to have given him a temporary permanent increase and then reduced the line back to normal in a few days when they left. It, shenanigans. But that guy was a prick. And I will never forget this, because he stood there while the manager for table games was standing on the edge of the office listening to this, while he was going after verbally the exec in the office. He was just kind of standing there looking dumb until she started cussing him back out, and then he tried to usher him out of the office after the damage was already done. He ended up, I don't know if he got her fired or if because she cussed back and he and the table games manager said she cussed him back. I don't know if he's the one that ultimately ended up getting her fired, but at that point she was done. She was over it. She didn't care anymore. Um and don't you know that son of a bitch let every single marker, which is markers were their what they called the line of credit checks that they were issued. Um every single one that the guy had at every single property, he had a credit line, returned NSF, and he filed for bankruptcy. And they had to take him to court to try to get their money back. He bankrupted his business out of, I think, Philly. Was it Philly or was it New York? I thought it was out of Philly. I can't remember what his business was. He was some Greek guy. He always had an attitude, though, most of the time when he was in there. I want to say it was like a dry cleaning business, but I could be wrong. He was using his business account, which you were allowed to do if you were the sole proprietor of the business. And went bankrupt. I don't know if they ever got the money, but I distinctly remember printing out copies of his file after the fact and checking and watching photocopies of all of the checks come back, NSF, NSF, NSF. And I was looking in the file, and they had done casino calls to his other properties, and they had NSF written on all of them, where he didn't pay any of them either. Even the ones out in Vegas, he didn't pay. And I was like, oh my god. I was like, wow. Good job, guy. Good job. Don't know if he did it on purpose or if he was in hawk that bad and had been trying to chase it and wanted the increase so bad because he knew he had markers coming due that he wasn't going to be able to pay. I don't know. Probably never will know the story behind that. But he was a real bastard. There might have been a $25 million line, but the guy wasn't in that often. I believe Whoopi Goldberg had a line of credit with us as well. Because there had been a lot of confusion over the name on the file. We had to redo her file like twice. because she had a non-actor name, like her real name was not her actor name, and it had to be the name on her ID. So we were going back and forth about what name was supposed to be on the file, and I don't know if she ever came in. They had set her up for one. Either she came in and she didn't end up needing it, or didn't end up doing it because of the whole name issue, or she did and I wasn't there. We were ready in case she came in that night, but I don't think she came in that night. I think she came in like the next day during the day because somebody else, I think, handled the file. Because I don't remember dealing with her, but we were waiting for a couple of days for her to come in. I remember that much. I don't know if any other celebrities had any files with us. I'm sure they did. I just don't know it. You do love to talk. It's nice. You have a soothing monotonic voice. Well, thanks, I guess. I do have a lot of people that have said they like having me on as background noise, and I'm fine with that. I will say sometimes I get weird going to other people's streams where they're like playing a game or something, but they're not talking. And I get weirded out by that because I'm like, talk. I'm like, you don't know if you've got lurkers in the chat. Talk. Like, some people only talk if somebody starts talking to them. But that's tough if you've got lurkers because the lurkers just want to chill in the background. And, maybe the lurkers are nervous to be chatty. Talk. But we can usually find something to talk about. With the way my brain runs, it might take me 3 streams to finish a story because I keep getting distracted. So I'm saying, if you're actually invested in a story I started telling and I didn't finish it, by all means, poke me about it. Because I'll get distracted by a thought that's sort of half related to what I'm talking about and jump to that before I manage to remember to circle back to finish the original thought. Husband's kind of used to it. So we are just kind of working on getting the highlight. So the blue was the shadow side. I didn't mention that. I was too busy running my mouth. So the blue was our shadow color on our mountain here. We are gonna try to work in some of our snowy highlights with some white. On the mountains that are kind of sitting in front of it. So that is what I'm trying to work on now. But yeah, I was really mad when I worked for their craft store. They're not in business anymore. I can say who they were. I haven't worked there since I think I was like 23. So I was working for AC Moore. I worked in one of their flagship locations because the owner of the chain lived like 15-20 minutes from the store. So the store always had to be immaculate, which is really hard to do when you've got so many assholes coming in and out. You've got parents that aren't watching their kids. that think the store is going to watch them or entertain them while you're shopping for stuff and don't want to be bothered by 500 questions while you're trying to get what you need for your project. I worked in the kids crafts department when I first started. Well, no. No. When I first started, I was working at night and I was cashier and night recovery. So I would come in, see, I was 18 when I started working there. Um, so they put me on a full-time, was I part-time? I was part-time, but I was a full 8 hours. Um, I wasn't on the minors schedule, the under 18. They had a special work schedule that they had to be on because of the amount of hours that they were allowed to work. Um, that couldn't be gone over or else the store got fined. All kinds of child law regulations. Um, that I only know a couple of. Um, but I was working in the unfinished wood department when I first started there, doing night recovery and cashiering. And the lady that ran that department during the day, she was a little scary. She was very gruff and blunt and to the point. She didn't have time to waste. She was busy. Like, this is what you need to do. A, B, and C. Do it. And she was and she would leave. Her nickname in the store was Tasmanian Devil. Um, so she could be scary if you weren't used to her and how she was. Like she wasn't like meanly aggressive. She just had a rough personality. And she could be a lot sometimes if you weren't used to her. So, she took a little bit of getting used to, but I actually got thrown into her department when I first started working there at night. And she was interesting, but after working there for so long, I could see what she was talking about and why she was the way she was. Like I got it. Like totally. The shit they had her doing day in and day out. She was also the store levels IT person by happenstance. If something broke, they're like, so and so, call the home office. Get on the phone with IT. This isn't working. I don't have time to the HR person, our office manager. She's like, "Yeah, I need to leave. You need to call home office about this." She had her doing so much shit that she probably wasn't technically supposed to be doing because she was just a department merchandiser. She ordered the shit, she did the plan shelf setups, she put freight out, like she did orders, like that was what she did. Um I did that for a few months. And I don't know if the person quit or got fired or retired or whatever that had been running the kids crafts department, but then they approached me a little while later and they're like, "Yeah, we want you to merchandise the kids crafts department now. It's 9 to 5 and you're going to be doing orders and you'll still be running register as they need you, your first call to register in that department." And I'm like, "I don't know the first thing about merchandising." They're like, "It's all right, we'll teach you." I was like, okay. That was a little scary, but we got through it. And I didn't necessarily mind what I did. I minded the parents that would bring their kids in. I kid you not. We had a plastic animal display from Safari Incorporated. These tiny, some of them weren't so tiny. Some of them were like give you a concussion. We had a woolly mammoth that was so heavy. It was big. I'm trying to figure out what I have that's comparable in size. So this is my microphone. Okay. It was about as tall as my microphone when it sits on the table. And that fucker would hurt somebody. Like you'd break a window if you threw it at the window. Um well, we got a new setup for it. And the store manager was the office manager's husband. And so that made him the owner's son-in-law. This man was very high strung. There were days we walked on eggshells in the hopes that he didn't get pissed off and start screaming and shit. However, he was the store manager for the majority of the time that I was there. He only stopped being the store manager when he got moved up to district manager. So he was still the district manager of that location, but he also had other stores he had to travel to, so he wasn't there all the time then. Which made us all breathe a sigh of relief on the days that he wasn't there. But he got it in his head that the animal display, which was these big plastic acrylic racks, it was like a plastic cube that had slots on 4 sides. The very front side was a little tiny bins for like the little baby animals that were less expensive. And then the other, was it? No, it was two-sided. I'm sorry. It was two-sided and then had the little mini display in front. Um the each of the other sides had slots for the slightly larger animals that were a little more expensive. Okay. So he decided, I don't like this display. It's too messy. And I looked at him, I'm like, what? He goes, I don't like it. It's too messy. There's nothing to keep the animals lined up with their tags, because we had to put order tags in on the little plastic acrylic shelves so we could reorder what we ran out of. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, uh-huh. That's why we have to clean it before we order from it. Or reorder it. There never was dividers in this rack. He goes, yeah, I don't like that. He goes, we're gonna make dividers. I stopped and looked at him, I'm like, what? He goes, we're gonna make dividers. And I just kind of looked at him, I'm like, how? He goes, I'm not sure yet. I'm thinking about it. We had this plastic L-shaped stuff. It was slightly flexible. It wasn't hard like a resin. Or like a hard acrylic. It was slightly flexible. That we had in the store. That we ran in front of stuff on the shelving. So kind of like a shelf bumper. Kind of like an extra lip. So if stuff had a tendency to slide off the shelf, like we had these like fuzzy posters that you would color in. So they were a flat cardboard, but they were also slippery because they were wrapped in plastic. And we didn't have like a carpet on the shelf to keep them from sliding. So we had to put some kind of fencing in front of them to keep them from sliding off. Those ones we had a little metal fence that hooked into the little groove pattern on the shelf. Like those shelves that you see in the stores that have all these holes like poked in them in certain spots. That's not there for ventilation or anything. It's there so you can put fixtures in to keep stuff from falling off the shelves and what have you. We had this plastic stripping that they used in the frame department. He goes, we're gonna get some of that. And we're gonna put it in the acrylic racks to make dividers. I said, how are we going to attach it? I was like, we have foam mounting tape which is double-sided, or we have double-sided. Well, I wasn't. We had Velcro on like big spools because they had to make display boards. We actually had two people that worked in our classroom. They didn't necessarily teach classes on the regular. Like they would have like a kids craft afternoon where parents could bring their kids in between this hour and this hour, and they could like make a 5-minute craft. Like they would oversee that and kind of teach the kids how to do it real quick, but they didn't necessarily teach classes. They were there to make the displays that were around the store, like how to make something with this crap, you know, to give people ideas of what they could do with things. Um so especially on the ends of the aisles, the stuff that was like kind of like feature items, they would take foam core board, like the real thick poster board that has the styrofoam in between it. It's called foam core. Um the sturdy stuff. And they would mount whatever they made onto these boards, and then they would take double-sided Velcro. We had strip A, we had side A, side B, and they would cut it to the length that they needed to put on the ends of the board. And they would take the Velcro and they would attach it to the top of the thing on the aisle, like up at the very top above all of the shelving and stuff. They would take the one side of the Velcro and just attach it to the end of the aisle fixture. And then they would put the other side of the Velcro. So if they put side A on the fixture, they would put side B on the board so that they could replace the boards without, you know, going through a mountain of mounting tape, and because the Velcro could be replaced more easily and we could replace the boards easier and faster. The mounting tape had to get like paint scrapered off because of the way it held on to stuff. I was like, well, every so often we got new planograms, new setups for everything in the store, really. And it's like, well, how are we gonna attach this plastic fencing? These plastic L-shaped fencing to make little tiny like cubbies to put these animals in to keep them together. He's like, I said, what if we use the Velcro? Because then when the planogram comes in, we can rip it up and just move it, right? We can readjust it a lot easier. He's like, no, I don't like that. He goes, the Velcro, the kids, they'll move it. It won't be sturdy. It'll move around. We're gonna use foam mounting tape. Y'all. I pity and have so much empathy for whoever had to redo that display rack when the next planogram came in, if they didn't have to order brand new display racks. Because that shit had to get scraped out of there with a box cutter and would not move. I had trouble just getting the little L pieces in the right position if it touched the acrylic rack too soon. Like, I was like, oh, this was not. I'm like, I certainly hope we don't get another planogram on this, and if we do, I certainly hope I'm not the one that's fucking doing it. It was a fucking disaster. An absolute disaster. Well, a friend of mine because of drama going on at home. Because I couldn't afford to have my own place at that point with what they were paying me. When I started there, I think I was making $7 an hour. Um, and she talked me into moving in with her in a different state. There was another AC Moore sort of near where she lived. So I store transferred. And when I store transferred, I ended up in the silk flower department trying to merchandise that. I didn't know the first thing about silk flowers. My store did not give me the chance to try to learn anything from our silk flower person before I left. And whenever I had a free moment and tried to ask her something, I was getting yelled at for being over in her department. I was like, I had a question. Jesus. It's like they didn't need me up front at the moment. We're slow at the moment. I was asking a question. All of my freight is up. The other store that I went to seemed to be having a problem keeping people in their silk flower department. Well, they weren't really silk flowers, the fake flower department. The floral stems. I thought that was odd until I got there. That store had some issues. It had a lot of issues. It was very cliquey. Now, I'm an anxiety nervous muffin on a good day. There was a lot of snakes apparently in that store, and I don't mean animals. From what some people were saying, some people didn't trust other people because they were tattletales and they would go and run to this person or that person, and a lot of people would get in trouble. And I'm like, well, what the fuck were you doing? Why were you doing it? Like, if you don't give them something, if you don't give them a reason to talk about and you're just doing your job, then what the fuck are you afraid of getting in trouble for? Like, they can't write you up if you're doing your job. Like, what are y'all doing that you shouldn't be doing? And the girl that had been running the department, along with her own, wasn't exactly the most friendly. Um, and she definitely wasn't real thrilled about me being there, which kind of surprised me because you would think, oh, thank goodness, we've got somebody else. I don't have to worry about this department for a while. I can try to teach that person what they need to do, and I can go back to worrying about my own shit. Which is what, maybe the mentality I would have taken with it. The only person, there were two people in that store that really showed me any sort of, yes, we're happy you're here. Now I didn't know the first thing about the floral department, so I was like just thrown into the deep end. But the store manager was real happy to have somebody to train in there. And one of the floral designers was kind of chatty with me, but a lot of people were like, "Oh no, you need to stay away from her. She's a real troublemaker at times." And I'm like, "Is she though? Or are you all just being weird?" Like, nobody else will fucking talk to me in this place. Even on my lunch, like, nobody really talked to me. I felt like such. It was such a vibe of, we don't want you here. Why are you here? You're not one of us. It was weird. It was very cold, and I just felt very ostracized. And I'm like, okay, I'm in a new state. I don't know anybody here. Nobody's really trying to be friendly at all except this one floral designer who everybody's like, oh no, don't talk to her. And I'm like, I gotta talk to somebody during the day. Like, this is very upsetting to be in this position for me, not knowing what the hell I was doing. They actually had the buyer for the flower department on the whole that worked out of the store's warehouse, who would help select what they were going to put in the store. Like, she was going to China a lot, trips traveling around to other stores, you know, making sure everything was how it needed to be. They had her coming to that store to train me. And I'm like, okay. And she was trying to, you know, tell me how the racks were supposed to be cleaned, how they're supposed to be organized. Those racks were a nightmare because there was like one side and one side, long sides. And there was like cubby holes, vases, cubby holes on both of these long sides. And then on the ends of the aisles, there was cubby holes, but those cubby holes could be slid out and opened, and they had storage inside behind the other cubby holes on the long sides. So there was shelving in there. They had no idea what was in there. I had to go through all of that and try to make sense of what was there. Um, this was like years long thing because you also have to get out the flowers that are in the setup now. Especially in the seasonal racks. So it's like, oh, well, this is a spring flower, this has to be out now. This is a Christmas flower, this has to be out there. And, you know, and then there was like everyday flowers sections. And then, you know, it was the special flowers that were dependent on whatever the season was. Well, I don't know if this is like another nod to me possibly being autistic or not, but when I'm in a situation that I've never been in before, and I was so traumatized from working with the other store manager that when he said no backstock, there was absolutely no backstock. Nothing could go in the stockroom without his approval. Like, you had to show him and you had to explain to him why you ordered too much and something had to go in the back. There were times where we were trying to hide the merchandise behind other merchandise if there was room, and had to remember to pull it back out and put it in the right spot just so we didn't have to deal with him if we had extra. So there was spring floral bushes that were in that week's ad coming up. And when you first walked in the door, you were right in the face with all of the flower bush tables that they had set up. They even took me to another store with the assistant manager for that section of the store, so we could learn how that store, who was very successful with their flower department, how they set up their tables and whatnot. They had a lot more room than we did. We were like a shoebox compared to that store. The store they took me to was more like the store I came from, that had a lot of open space. They had a lot of big tables where you could do big grand displays and whatnot. And I did not have that luxury at this place. And I'm like, okay. So I'm already kind of like reduced with the amount of space I have to work with. I'm like, all right, I don't know if I can do anything like that. And well, when we were trying to figure out how many bushes that we had to order for what was on sale, we were trying to figure out how many would fit on the table. And he's like, and the store manager in this location was like, you can't have any backstock. He literally said, you cannot have backstock. Nothing can go in the stockroom. So my brain went into panic mode. It's like, oh God, I don't know how much to order, so I don't have any going in the back. This was a sale item for the weekend. I ordered what I thought I needed without having backstock, not knowing how fast things move in this store, okay? I come in on Monday, and I'm greeted with him. First thing, he says, goes punch in, and I'm like, uh-oh. Because he couldn't talk to me until I was on the clock. So I tentatively put my stuff in my locker, and I come back, and I'm like, yeah. He goes, come walk with me. I'm like, oh shit. I'm like, I fucked up now. I'm like, what did I do? What did I do? What did I do? And I'm like panicking on the inside. I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, what did I do? We get up front. He goes, "Did you notice anything different when you walked in, or do you notice anything different now?" And I'm looking at the front table and I'm looking at it, and it suddenly dawned on me that the flowering bush that was there was not the flowering bush that I had filled on Friday. And I'm like, wait, I was like, is that a different bush? He goes, "Yeah." "Do you know why it's a different bush?" And I'm like, "No, did I not put the right one there? I thought we discussed that it was supposed to go there." He goes, "No, it was there. And then we ran out. And you didn't have any in backstock." And I about lost my fucking mind. I actually tore into him a little bit, which was very uncharacteristic for me. Like, I was almost in tears. I was like, "You told me no backstock." Like, I was like having a meltdown. I was like, "You said no backstock. You said absolutely nothing can go in the back. You said I couldn't have backstock." And he goes, "Well, yeah, you can have it on sale items." And I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. You did not say on sale items. You said strictly no backstock, nothing going to the back." I didn't even know where the floral boxes were kept in the stockroom. No one had ever showed me. And they were all like, "No, no, nothing can go to the back. There's nothing in the back." There was boxes back there. They eventually showed me where my section was for overstock floral boxes. I almost had a nervous breakdown right then and there. I'm like, "You told me. Did you or did you not stand here and tell me absolutely no backstock? Nothing could go in the stockroom." And he's like, "Yeah, but I didn't mean on the sale items." I was like, "No, no, 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 no. That's not how this works. If you are okay with there being," sorry, I was mixing a color. I was like, "If you're okay with there being overstock, or you want there to be extra of sale items to get through the weekends, you need to tell me that. I've not done this job before. I merchandise the kids' crafts department. Entirely different than floral. They have two totally different outlooks on them. You don't go through as much stuff in the kids' craft department unless it's a specific kit on sale or something. And then there's usually a variety." I was like, "That's not how this works, okay? Not with me. You need to spell it out for me. If sale stuff can go in the stockroom, you need to say, okay, we need to order for the table and the back room so that we have enough to get through the weekend. I'm not a mind reader, and I don't understand when you say no backstock that sale stuff is fine." Because normally the backstock would go into the racks on the floral stems. And we try to not have backstock in the floral racks because only so many will fit in the floral racks. Usually one case fills the floral rack. And we don't carry backstock on everything. Maybe the more popular ones you might have an extra box of, maybe. But that's a big maybe, because unless it's on sale, they don't really move. So if you tell me no backstock, that's what you get. So yeah, no, we're not playing that game. I was not about to let him throw me completely under the bus and be like, this is all on you. This looks bad on you." And I was like, "No, no, 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 no." At that point, I had enough balls to stand up for myself in that particular moment, because I was basically thrown under the bus in that store from the word go. The assistant manager that was for that section of the store, they had assistant managers that covered 3 sections of the store each, and 3 assistant managers total. So, and then the store manager would be over top of them. So he had me and 2 other people that he was overseeing. With the exception of the day that him and I had to go to another store to see how they did their floral displays. And we were gone most of the day. Like, we took that merchandiser out to lunch because we were monopolizing their time. And I guess our store paid for it. But like, it was like a whole thing, like a whole like training day. The buyer for the store, I think the buyer for the chain either set it up, or our store manager and their store manager set it up. So like we were gone like all day. That was there might have been one other day I saw him for maybe 10 minutes. I never saw the man. In my store, you saw your assistant managers putzing around, coming and going, walking this way, walking that way. I never saw him, even just walking around the store. Like, I was on my own trying to figure out the floral planograms and trying to get stuff set up and figure out, okay, what's here, what's there? How do I clean these racks? Because there was a specific way they wanted them cleaned. If the floral stem was too short, you had to get the paper that they wrapped the breakable stuff with from the registers and stuff the bottom of it to get them to sit up higher. I knew that much from the store I had, my home store. And I was thrown in the deep end. Here, good luck, figure the fuck out. This store was so fucked up. I kid you not. I felt bad for the store manager because he seemed like a nice guy. I had no problem with him per se once we got on the same communication page. After that, he was thrilled with me once we figured out how to clearly communicate with one another. And the department, I actually got it turned around and it was starting to show a profit. The sales numbers were going up at the weekly meeting and he was thrilled. He was tickled pink that the department was starting to turn a profit. And I was like, "Oh, this is like is this new? Does this department not do that?" Like I was so confused. I'm like, "Okay. Great." Um Now, at this point, I was only there 6 months, by the way, before I had a nervous breakdown and couldn't do it anymore and went home. There was other drama going on there, not just at the job, but also with the chick I moved in with. But but that's a whole nother story. But the buyer for the store, like the chain, was coming in and teaching me how to clean the floral racks and how to set stuff up. And she's like, and if you don't get done, because the floral racks were cleaned every day. Like every day you were in a new section of rack cleaning it. And you were just constantly doing that, checking the overflow that was behind the racks, seeing if anything had to get refilled and all that. It was a constant cycle. And she's like, if you don't get to finish a rack, she goes, you have part-time employees that come in at night. Leave them a message, leave them a note, let them know where you left off, and see if they have time to pick up where you left off. That's what they're here for. They're here to help you get through the stuff that you didn't get done during the day. And I'm like, okay, sure, I can do that. I never met the person that worked part-time in that department because I had always left before they came in. I never laid eyes on any of them that worked on the weekend. I just never did. We were never in the same place at the same time. By the time I was leaving, they hadn't quite gotten in yet. So I did what the buyer told me to do. And I left a note. I was like, hey, I'm so and so. I'm the new merchandiser. I got this far through the rack on this rack. Can you see if you have time, if you can try to finish cleaning this section? Y'all, I came in the next day. Now, the floral designer, the one who everybody's telling me not to talk to because she likes to start trouble, I don't know if this is true or not, but with the way that everybody else behaved in that store, I actually believe it. She was there working late trying to get some displays done or a customer order done. She said to me, she's like, when so-and-so that works part-time over here came in and saw your note, she almost quit on the spot because you asked her to do something. I was like, you gotta be kidding me. And she's like, yeah. I'm like, what the hell's the problem? I was doing what I was told I could do if I didn't get something done. She's like, she had a hissy fit and almost quit. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, what in the hell is the people's problem working here? Like, the fuck? Like, I'm doing what I was told. I almost broke down in tears at that point right then there. I'm like, how am I supposed to get anything done if nobody will help me? I was just like, this isn't gonna work if we're constantly fighting against each other. It's just not. That's not how this is gonna work. But, um, I had heard that the assistant manager that was supposed to be overseeing me, um, was having some issues, which was apparently why I had never seen them hardly during the day. Nobody had really seen much of them. They were doing some things that they shouldn't have been doing. And I had come in one day to the news that they had unalived themselves, and I was like, "Oh my god." Um and then I felt really bad for the store manager because of how I left, because I had a nervous breakdown and ended up deciding that I was moving back home over that weekend, and left a message, left a note for the store manager to see when they came in. I'm like, "Yeah, I can't do this anymore. The people are being like, there's just like a family emergency back home. I have to move back home to help. I can't. I'm sorry." And my old store did end up taking me back, but they took me back as a front end supervisor instead of back in my department because they had filled the spot. And when that spot became open because that person left, I was like, "Can I have my department back?" They're like, "No." I was like, "What do you mean, no? I already know how to do it. You wouldn't have to train me for it. I know what I'm doing." They're like, "You'd have to take a cut and pay." I'm like, "That's fine. I'll take the cut and pay." It was $1, if that. It might have been 50 cents. No, I think it was $1. It was $1 difference. I'm like, "That's fine. I'll fill out the paperwork. I'll sign. I fully understand that I'm taking $1 cut and pay. I want my department back." Nope. Can't do it. They wouldn't let me leave up front because I was one of their more competent people up front, it turned out. And that's kind of scary considering I'm dyslexic and I made my own share of fuck ups. But that's a story for a different day. So we didn't quite finish. We still have a ways to go. But I think we're off to a good start. We got our sky in, and that looks pretty good. We got our clouds in. Clouds could be a little better, but they're not terrible. I've done worse. Those aren't bad. And we've got our mountains in. So, they're not quite Bob-worthy mountains, and it looks kind of weird at the moment. It's not quite the same setup as the one I did in the oils, but it's close. Next Monday, we'll probably finish it. Probably. So we'll start to put in our tree line and then get our water put in and do our boat. I could see us finishing this next week because the mountains in the sky took the most amount of time, playing with the clouds and getting those quite right, and then playing with the mountains. And I don't think the rest of it will take quite as much fussing. Maybe just a little bit of fussing, but I think we're on tap to finish that next Monday. Tomorrow we will be back. We will be needle felting tomorrow. We're going to be working on our next magnet, and this is bugging me, so I need to check to see what magnet we are on. Let me bring up Moobot. Custom. Okay, so we did do number 8 last week. We're going to be doing number 9 this week. Let me see what that is. I don't remember what it looks like. I think we briefly showed it. last week, potentially. But let me see. You shouldn't be that far down the list. Where are you? It would have been faster if I had just typed it in. Alright, we'll do that. Let's look you up here. Playlists. 31. And we are on episode... Oh, okay. So we're going to be doing Evergreen Valley is what we're going to be following along with next. It's mountainy. There's some mountain guys in there. So we'll start to work on that tomorrow. So thank you guys for hanging out with me this afternoon. Actually, that doesn't look half bad on the camera. Sorry, I got distracted by it. It doesn't look half bad for what we've gotten done so far. For being, I mean, that's craft paint. See, you can do some decent stuff even with supplies that are not super high end. You just kind of have to learn what you can get away with doing. So, I'm pretty happy with where we're at the moment on this guy. Don't forget to follow the socially links. That'll take you to the Instagram, the Ko-fi, the Blue Sky, because that's where we live now. We left X Twitter. And we also have a link to the YouTube channel. Honey, I joined a cult. I've started recording. That will probably be going up the beginning of June. I looked at how things were scheduled. It looks like I've got the last Bear and Breakfast episodes going up towards the end of May. So probably the beginning of June is when we'll start to see that show up on the channel. I've got like almost the whole month of April scheduled out, so like yay. Anything to give me some breathing room over there. But yeah. You guys have a good one. I hope your Monday gets over with smoothly. Zort's hang in there, try to get some coffee into you, try to figure out how you're gonna flip your sleep schedule like this. And shake fist at those that schedule these stupid training things to the trainer's convenience and not the employees that have to do it. And I will see everybody tomorrow. So until next time, you guys, have a good one.